and silver plates. The banquet had lasted for 4 hours. Light from crystal chandeliers had twinkled back from gold braid and jewels. Deep windows had opened out on curving floral gardens, and the sea breezes had filled the room with the scent of flowers. An almost intolerable loneliness racked Kit away from the joyous crowd. She was filled with a restlessness she could not understand. What was it that plagued her with this longing to turn back? Was it that far-off memory of elegance and beauty? Or was it just the look in Thankful's eyes as she stood radiant in her rose-colored lute-string wedding dress and listened to the toasts to her future? Kit and Judith, each lost in her own thoughts, stood together near the wall, unable to join in the merrymaking. From across the room, William watched them bravely, making no move. When the bride and groom had driven off in their sleigh toward the snug new house that awaited them, the guests turned back to the laden tables. 2 fiddlers in the corner scraped a lively tune, and some of the more daring young people began to dance. No one paid attention to the 2 tardy guests who appeared at the door, letting in a gust of wind, till suddenly a woman screamed and threw her arms about a snow-covered figure. Then abruptly the music stopped, and the laughter was checked, and everyone crowded about the newcomers. They were 2 Wethersfield men returned from Massachusetts with a detachment of militia. The story they had to tell put a somber end to the happy evening. Of the detachment of 20, only 8 had come back to Hartford. Just south of Hadley, before they could reach Deerfield, they had been ambushed by Indians who attacked savagely with both arrows and French rifles. 4 men had been killed outright, and 2 others had died of wounds on the trail home. The rest had been surrounded and taken captive. For a few days, the survivors had attempted to follow the Indians, till a heavy snow had made it impossible to go on. They had found the scalped body of one of the captives lying by the trail, and they had little hope that in that weather any of the prisoners would have been spared. They had turned back and made their way on snowshoes, barely reaching Hadley before another visit set in. The sobered guests crowded close, waiting for one answer. No, none of the Wethersfield men had been killed, but one of the captives was that young fellow who had been studying with the doctor, John Colebrook.
Oh my God!
Came from Judith, or saw her waver and fall. Kit and Rachel sprang forward, but it was William who reached her first and carried her gently to the settle by the fire. And it was William who later tucked her carefully into his sleigh and drove her home. In the weeks that followed, watching Judith, Kit began to understand how the gray shadow that was her Aunt Rachel could once have been the toast of an army. Hopelessness had erased the color and animation from Judith's face and set her lovely features into a still mask. Kit ached for her. But even more, she was torn with pity for Mercy, whose grief could not find an outlet in a tear or a word. Would Mercy's scant strength be equal to this burden? Rachel worried that her daughter did not gain, and fussed over the fire, concocting nourishing stews which Mercy obediently tried to swallow. In some contradictory way, grief seemed to have etched on Mercy's thin face a beauty it had never possessed. Behind the clear gray eyes, the light still burned steady. Should I tell her? Kit wondered. Surely now Mercy has a right to know that John loved her. But watching Mercy's stillness, she found a new patience to resist her own impulse. Someday the time would come when Mercy could know. The Christmas season passed, unmarked by any rejoicing. There was no holiday in this Puritan town, no feasting, no gifts. The day went by like any other, filled with work, and Kit said nothing, ashamed that in this somber household she should even remember a happy English Yuletide. January dragged by, and February. It was the hardest winter most of the townspeople could remember. Old people shook their heads, recalling blizzards of their childhood, but it was impossible for Kit to visualize anything more bleak than this first winter of her experience. She no longer saw any beauty in a world muddled in white. She hated the long days of imprisonment when there was nothing to see through the window but shifting curtains of pale grey, when drifts stood waist-high on the doorstep and it took hours of back-breaking labour to carve a passage through hell. She hated the drafty floors and frigid corners, and the perpetual animal reek of heavy clothes hung about the fireplace to dry. Every night she shrank from the moment when she and Judith must make the dread ascent to the upstairs chamber with only the meagre comfort of a warming pan. But impatient as she was with the long days indoors, the outdoors promised only aching misery. She resented the arduous preparation for the journey to meeting, the heavy leather boots, the knit socks drawn over them, the clumsy little footstove they had to lug all the way. It cooled off long before the sermon was finished and left one to sit with stinging fingers and toes, while the breath of the whole congregation rose like the smoke through so many pipes. How could Hannah ever have endured it? She'd often shivered, alone in that cabin with the wind howling outside, and no one to speak to for weeks on end but the cat and the goats. She hoped there was a cozy hearth at Nat's grandmother's house, and her own heart warmed at the thought of the two old ladies sharing it together. Then the restless thoughts would drift after the dolphin. Nat had offered to take her with him. Suppose she had accepted his offer. If she had never come back, would anyone here in this house really have cared very much? By now, she would be in Barbados. At this very moment, she might be. The broom in her hand or the treadle under her foot would idle to a stop as she walked in imagination up the wide drive to her grandfather's house and stepped up to the long, shady veranda. Then she would shake herself free. Such daydreaming was a weakness. The house was sold, and she was here in New England, and perhaps Nat had never really meant his offer at all. One night she awoke from a vivid dream. She and Nat had stood side by side at the bow of the Dolphin, watching that familiar curving prow carving gently through calm turquoise water. They came soundlessly into a palm-studded harbor, fragrant with the scent of blossoms, and happiness was like sunshine, wrapping her round and pouring into her heart till it overflowed. She woke in the freezing darkness. "I want to go back," she admitted at last, weeping. "I want to go home, where green things are growing and I will never see snow again as long as I live." Her tears scalding her eyelids froze instantly against the pillow. Lying tense beside Judith, she made a resolve. After that, all through the cheerless days, she hugged the dream close. Sometimes, driven by her restlessness, she would talk about Barbados to Mercy. "Once, when I was quite small," she would say over the hum of the flax wheel, "my grandfather took me to see a great cave. You had to go to it when the tide was very low, and when a wave dashed across the rocks, it made a sort of curtain across the opening of the cave. But inside it was very calm and still, and the water on the floor was as clear as glass. Underneath the water there was a sort of garden, made of coloured rocks, and all over the roof of the cave there were queer hanging shapes, like those icicles outside the window, only pale green and orange and rose-coloured. It was so beautiful, Mercy." Mercy would look across at Kit's wistful face and smile in understanding. "She knows," Kit thought. "When I tell them that my mind is made up, she will not try to keep me. She will be sorry, I think, but truly, won't they, all of them, be a little relieved?" In all honesty, she often argued, wouldn't she help the family most by leaving? Did the help she managed to give her aunt and uncle ever begin to make up for their trouble, and for the inescapable fact that she was another person to feed and clothe? Though no one ever so much as hinted at it, the grim truth was that where a short time ago 2 girls had been well provided for, there was now every likelihood of 3 spinsters in the Wood household. No, she amended, Judith would never be a spinster. Kit had watched William's face in meeting, and she knew that he was only biding his time. And Judith, in spite of her downcast eyes, was well aware of this. By every right of beauty and accomplishment, Judith belonged in the new house on Broad Street. In their secret hearts, all 3 of them, she and William and Judith, had really known that all along. It needed only time now to bring about the match, which Kit and John Colebrook had interrupted. In March, a fresh blizzard